We're going to talk about developing and implementing community-based safety and resilience programming, including mindful self-compassion programs as an upstream approach to suicide prevention. And to discuss this, I am really glad that we have Vira Salzburn with us. She is a Ukrainian American who moved to the United States at the age of 18 with only $300. She's passionate about helping those in need. She is a mindful self-compassion trained teacher and applied suicide intervention skills trainer, master trainer. She currently serves as the program director for community-based safety and resilience programs managed by Chatham County Safety Net Planning Council. She is a trauma-sensitive mindfulness and yoga instructor, and she is currently studying human behavior at Harvard University. Vira has presented at numerous state and regional conferences about the importance of addressing the problem of suicide and building resilience in communities. So Vira, thanks a lot for joining me.
Yes, thank you, Ray, so much for having me.
Yeah. So maybe just to get started, if you could explain the mindful self-compassion program. So we've had other talks about suicide prevention. There's a lot of suicide prevention programs. And so a couple pieces that you kind of bring into that is having it be community-based and also the mindful self-compassion programming. So can you kind of explain what those are, and then we'll move into how you got started in this field?
Absolutely. So the Mindful Self-Compassion Program is an evidence-based program developed by doctors Christine Neff and Christopher Garmer. And I was very fortunate to be trained under them. And the aim of the program is to truly help individuals develop the skills of self-compassion through mindfulness and self-compassion practices. So there are a lot of programs out there that are specifically focused on building the skills of mindfulness for individuals. This is the first program that teaches self-compassion explicitly. The goal of the program is to help people learn how to relate to their experiences with kindness and understanding, rather than judging themselves for their mistakes or misfortunes and failures. What's interesting, when I discovered this program by reading a book by Vira Salzburn called Real Love, and in that book, the author described the Mindful Self-Compassion program. So when I was researching it, I realized that there is a specific research that shows that self-compassion serves as a protective factor for suicidal behaviors. And it also provides a buffer between the feelings of shame and depression for those who had attempted suicide. So when we're looking at the national model for comprehensive approach to suicide prevention published by the National Suicide Prevention Resource Center, it actually includes enhancing life skills and resilience and building social connectedness and support. And what's interesting, the research on self-compassion shows exactly that it helps to build the skills of resiliency, that it helps people to connect with themselves and others, and it also leads to a deepened sense of forgiveness and acceptance of others and yourself, just as you are. So in a nutshell, that's how self-compassion helps save lives from suicide. And after discovering all of these factors about the Mindful Self-Compassion program, it only made sense to integrate it into our existing traditional, at the time, community-based suicide prevention efforts as an upstream approach to suicide prevention. So really using that public health approach to population health, meaning there is prevention, intervention, postvention when it comes to suicide prevention efforts in the community. We really took the Mindful Self-Compassion program and plugged it in as that upstream approach. So in addition to pulling people out of the river of suicide through effective intervention, we could go up the river and begin to repair the broken bridge to stop people from falling into it in the first place by empowering them with those skills of mindfulness and self-compassion.
So what you mean by upstream is earlier on, right? Like trying to reach people early on to develop skills of resilience and self-compassion, so they're less likely to have issues of suicide. Is that right?
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. And as we're looking at any successful public health efforts, a lot of times they do involve that educational piece or the skills that help people to cope with life or problems, or know where to find resources if they struggle with any health or behavioral health problems before the crisis occurs.
Mm-hmm. And what do you mean by community based? How's that different from not being community based? What makes it community based?
So for our programs, they're truly powered through the power of our partnerships. And when we provide programming in our community, we are not specific to a certain group or a certain population. So for instance, we provide programming in suicide prevention, mindful self-compassion to youth, adults, people who have mental health needs, veterans, law enforcement. And also we help develop other trainers and individuals in our community in various organizations who want to become facilitators and providers of the mindful self-compassion program. So it's really for the community and by the community. And our goal is focused on building capacity. So develop counselors in schools with the skills of mindful self-compassion so they can then go and teach the kids. We also provide training for the behavioral health specialists and professionals so they can enrich their own practice and serve those whom they serve. And we also simply have community champions, people who actually may be retired or former trauma therapists, and they are just passionate about providing classes and workshops to whoever shows up to them. So the community-based means that we are here to serve a wide range of community members and organizations. And it's been really successful for not just programmatic purposes and growing the program and building capacity, but really reaching people that we wouldn't reach otherwise. And accessibility is also number one goal, at least for me as the program director, making sure that everything we offer, which is completely true right now, is at no cost to the end user. So we have individuals who enroll into our workshops and training, and they may come from different financial backgrounds or social backgrounds or educational backgrounds, and they may have different needs. So everything we offer to those individuals is completely free. Now, of course, we have some contracts and grants that we receive from other organizations. But again, we are really focused on making this accessible. And we
Yeah.
have, Mhm.
Yeah, so that's very different than, say, a private company providing mindful self-compassion training or services, where they are focused on particular population, focused on profit, keeping the training in-house, whereas the community-based, free of charge, accessible to everyone, connecting with community resources and pre-existing programs like schools, empowering other leaders in the community to be able to teach this and reach as many people as possible. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And in addition to that, also we go to where people are. So we don't have a fancy office or studio or meditation center. Literally showing up at law enforcement training center or the fire station or the schools and being there. We also have very non-traditional partnerships. We partner with one of our local comedy theater, and they actually in kind provide space for us for various training as well. And that's how we really get to be in different parts of Savannah. This is where we are, Chatham County, in different parts of the community. So also by location, it can be also more accessible to individuals.
Yeah, and it seems like another thing that's a little different about this type of program is the skills that are taught by the teachers. The teachers are supposed to be having a living practice of these skills. So it's not just kind of a cognitive thing or behavioral thing that you do at a particular time, but it's like a lifestyle practice that you're teaching people and that the teachers themselves do. So can you explain what is mindfulness, self-compassion, and that piece about kind of a life practice of it?
Yes, absolutely. And before I explain that, this your question, and thank you for it, reminded me that another way of us making the program accessible for the community is by creating layers of training. So, for instance, the full blown program in person is an 8-week course, 2 hours a week for 8 weeks. Now, that's great. However, not that many people may have that much time on their hands to actually allocate to going to a class for 2 hours. I'm thinking of moms, for instance, with multiple kids. Okay, so we've decided to create a training menu that is quite diverse, and we offer 1 hour workshops. So perhaps in 1 hour, we may not teach you that many skills, but we can build awareness of the mindful self-compassion program, share the resources, describe what it is, and maybe teach you one particular skill or meditation or mindfulness practice. And you can take it from there and then maybe grow your own knowledge later on through books and the resources that we recommend. We also offer half-day workshops. I personally facilitated workshops for educators. And we have, for instance, a school that invited us to bring this on as a wellness day for the teachers. And it was quite lovely, and they seem to have enjoyed it. So that was a human resource initiative to bring well-being to the educators of the school district. And we also provide full day workshops. So it could be a full 1-day workshop, and I've provided those both in person and online. Sometimes maybe an organization wants to break it down and have 2-day workshop, and that's where you learn about the skills, you practice the skills within the class, and yes, you can carry them on forward. The interesting fact about the 8-week program in the mindful self-compassion is quite similar to many other programs that are mindfulness based or mind body based programs. So I'm thinking of, for instance, stress management and resiliency program through Henry Benson Institute, or I'm thinking about stress, John Kabat-Zinn mindfulness based stress reduction program. That's the 8-week course. And it appears that it takes about 8 weeks for the person to actually start building those lifelong skills. Okay, because it is ultimately rooted in practice. So we are not here to create a hardcore meditator through the self-compassion program, and that's maybe a little bit different compared to some other curricula, because really the intention is to, through simple skills that we teach, to become a better noticer of your own pain or suffering, whether it's physical, emotional, relational, mental. Okay, and then also become the better noticer of how you relate to your pain and suffering, because a lot of times people may experience those challenges and pains and different difficulties, but rather than supporting themselves and being their best coach, they may start judging themselves harshly and say, oh, I'm stupid, I can't handle this, something is wrong with me. And what's interesting, research shows us that our brain perceives self-judgment, just the way it perceives other judgment and criticism, and it actually activates the stress response system in our body and our brain. So we are increasing the levels of cortisol and other stress hormones, and actually increasing our stress levels. So by simply offering yourself those self-compassion phrases, or using some particular mindfulness or meditation techniques, or even certain gestures that you can offer yourself, self-soothing techniques, you can actually help your brain and body relax, and therefore clear your head, and become a better decision maker for yourself and your own well-being. And rather than being reactive to whatever life throws at you, all the stresses, you can be a little bit more responsive and have a more clear response, and really become more decisive. Is this truly what I need right now? Is this truly what is supportive and helpful for me? Because that quintessential question of the self-compassion practice is, what is that I really need right now? What is that I really need right now, based on what my body is telling me, my emotional body, my cognitive body, right? So helping people to make better decisions for themselves and their own health and wellness. So yes, if we talk about self-compassion in terms of what is self-compassion and what's the difference between mindfulness and self-compassion. So self let's start with compassion. So the word compassion from Latin means to suffer with. So when we extend compassion to ourselves or parts of ourselves, that would be self-compassion. In other words, when we treat ourselves the way we would treat a good friend, with kindness and understanding, non-judgmentally, right? So with self-compassion, we become our own ally rather than being our own worst critic, which most people are. Trust me, I've done training for thousands of people now, and every time I ask someone, would you say your own best critic? Or please raise your hand if you judge yourself harshly a lot. And a lot of times, a lot of hands come up. Also, I work specifically with educators and healthcare professionals. And what was really interesting for me to learn when I was going through a teacher training for self-compassion for healthcare professionals, the research training, and there was specific research showing that doctors who tend to judge themselves more harshly actually tend to make more mistakes in their work. And it's very interesting because self-judgment, it truly creates that more tunnel vision. And again, you're attacking yourself constantly. So your amygdala, that alarm system in your brain, just doesn't have a time to rest. And you keep pumping those stress hormones into your system by doing so. So of course, when we're stressed and overwhelmed, we tend to make more mistakes. Not just doctors do that, but there's specific research on that.
Yeah, you could see that in sports a lot. If
Absolutely.
if the goalkeeper, if a goal goes in, then they can get really frustrated with themselves, and then you just know the game's going to go bad if the players are hard on themselves. So they have to let it go, move on, stay positive. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I'm glad you mentioned, players as well, athletes, because, and just talking about suicide prevention, a lot of times those people have very high expectations of themselves. And unfortunately, we've had in the previous years some high profile athletes, including football players, who unfortunately attempted or ended their life by suicide, or struggled with depression and anxiety because of various challenges that they had to face in the athletic work as well. So self-compassion really helps us tackle, in terms of sports, those thoughts and emotions connected to self-judgment. And self-compassion also is an antidote to shame. Dr. Christopher Germer, who is one of the co-developers of the program, he is specifically a researcher and a speaker on that, how self-compassion truly is the antidote to shame. And it helps us, really to soothe ourselves and support ourselves when we struggle with this difficult emotion. Shame is one of the hardest, most difficult emotions. And in suicide prevention, what I seen time and time again that individuals who struggle with thoughts of suicide, which is already painful, that in itself, just having the thoughts is a form of suffering. But then they shame themselves or feel ashamed for having those thoughts, as if something is, broken within them, or they're just this terrible person. And of course, rather than telling yourself, wow, this is so hard for me, having this thought or not being able to get through this right now, or it seems like, I'm being hopeless, like this is hard. So rather than offering them that kindness and support the way they might do for their good friend, instead they feel ashamed and they feel that they are bad, right? Because there's the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt says, I did something wrong, and shame says, I am wrong, I am a bad person. And so the identity become completely taken over by this difficult emotion. Okay, so that's a little bit on the self-compassion side. And then when we talk about mindfulness, which of course has been a buzzword, a lot of different modalities are using mindfulness techniques, a lot of different therapeutic modalities. And I like the definition by John Kabat-Zinn. Mindfulness is paying attention in the present moment, non-judgmentally, with acceptance. Okay, so that's the big part, with acceptance, non-judgmentally. I'm sorry, and I missed with purpose. Another part. So paying attention in the present moment with purpose, non-judgmentally, or with acceptance. Okay, so mindfulness in full bloom, it's not just me paying attention to the experience. Yes, that is a part of it, but a huge component is the quality of attention. I can bring attention to the fact that I have a headache, and I can say to myself, this is a stupid headache. I can't stand it. What type of voice is that? What type of attitude is that? What type of quality of attention is that? Or I can notice that I have a headache and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Or, man, I got this. What do I need right now to help myself? Okay. So mindfulness in full bloom, it's awareness with warmth or kindness. Okay. And of course, there are other different aspects to it. It's a kind of a non-resistance. So bringing whatever the experience is into awareness, or noticing what enters the awareness and allowing it to go through. So it says also non-resistance, non-attachment. A lot of times our brain, I want this or I don't want this, right? And that creates actually a lot of stress and suffering. I don't want to be stuck in the car, in this car line or whatever, in this traffic, or why is my neighbor so loud right now? So, and a lot of times the more we bring this wanting, non-wanting into our life, these battles, that's when it can get just a little tricky and stressful as well. So
right,
you can think of mindfulness as mindfulness is about the experience, yeah, and self-compassion is about the experiencer. So let's go back to the let's say stuck in traffic example. I am aware that I'm stuck in traffic. I don't like this. I'm aware of the emotions that are rising, frustration, or maybe even anger or annoyance. Okay, I'm not gonna try to push them back or tell them, or maybe I start noticing that I don't want to feel this way. Something is wrong with me. Oh, no, let me see. Okay, that's okay. I'm stuck in traffic. This is normal. This is what people feel. So I recognize my experience and what I'm not, what's going on right now. I'm trying not to push it away. I'm okay. This is what it is. And then instead of saying to myself, oh, something is wrong with me, like, why am I so angry at these people? Or, and instead of doing that, relating to ourselves with self-compassion. Oh, this is really hard. Okay, I got this. Okay, what can be helpful for me right now? What do I need? Maybe I need to listen to some better music right now, or maybe I need to call a friend. Maybe this is a good time right now to connect. Right. So we work with experience, or notice the experience, hold the experience, and then we hold ourselves as we experience that very unpleasant experience.
right. Kind of like a kind parent that really tries to help a child through a difficult time, rather than a parent that is reactive and lashes out and shames the child for being upset.
Oh, Ray, I love that you said that, because the practice of self-compassion is truly, for a lot of people, is about reparenting ourselves. A lot of us did not have necessarily parents who, were just extremely knowledgeable in psychology and social work and knew exactly how to support their kids. In fact, a lot of people have experienced neglect, abuse in childhood. Maybe they had caregivers who just they weren't trained caregivers, so they really tried to do their best, and they had their own histories as well. So sometimes it is a practice of learning how to become your own best caregiver. And I know for me, I'm from Ukraine originally, and my family, although they're very loving, they unfortunately had a lot of problems, as many families do. And my dad struggled with alcoholism, and my mother, she actually was not educated at all. She didn't even finish high school, and they struggled, and willingly or unwillingly, it affected my childhood, and it affected how I was brought up. And when we talk about adverse childhood experiences or ACEs, I could count quite a bit of those as well. So when I started practicing the mindful self-compassion, I really recognized it was a little bit of an opening of a can with worms, as they say. So I realized quickly there are so many parts in myself that I didn't love, because I wasn't taught how to love them, or maybe those parts never received the love from my caregivers that they needed. And now is the time for me to learn how to love those parts. And if not love, at least set an intention to accept eventually. So it's not about, okay, now I love myself and I accept everything about myself, but at least now I'm aware, and now I set an intention of want to be more accepting of myself.
Yeah, it seems like a very empowering experience and learning that people get. And how many communities do you know of that utilize mindful self-compassion programming? So the program that you're a director of in Savannah, Georgia, you're doing it. Are there other communities that are utilizing this?
Thank you for that question. So the Mindful Self-Compassion program is developed through the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion, and their headquarters is in California. And again, the program was developed by Dr. Neff and Dr. Garmer. And what the Center for MSC provides, or for Mindful Self-Compassion, they provide a lot of training and education, and individuals who want to become trainers, they can take courses. But the way they do it is by utilizing the teachers that they've developed. So I'm one of the trained teachers through the Mindful Self-Compassion Center. And, I just decided for me in my role to take this as a community-wide program. And I know in the same time there are other teachers who are trained teachers. A lot of them may be therapists, or also maybe just people who are interested in mindfulness, the yoga teachers, and they may be offering those type of classes just as part of their practice. Maybe they are offering those courses for individuals, just like you take any training program. So whoever wants to pay or enroll will offer those courses to you. We refer individuals to the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion. They are the resource hub, but the difference is that with our programs and what we offer, again, it is at no cost to the community, and we are a nonprofit organization. So anytime that we have opportunities that, say, organization comes in and says, we would love for you to do the training, we can support you. So anytime we make any profit as a nonprofit organization, we invested back into the community, and we pay for other people to become trainers. For trainers, we pay trainers to go teach students and participants. So we turn that revenue to support our suicide prevention program. So yes, we are not the most profitable nonprofit organization, as we truly try to make it again, everything for the community. So I don't know necessarily if there is
Like
another
a community-wide, yeah, another community-wide program.
program, but what
Yeah.
I do know that we are the only suicide prevention program that integrates mindful self-compassion as a part of the community-wide, community-based suicide prevention efforts. And I've done my training in Canada with a lot of Canadian therapists on the mindful self-compassion. I did my training for self-compassion for healthcare communities with a lot of national and international individuals. My original training was with Dr. Neff and Dr. Garmer in Maryland, and I've met over 100 people there. And anytime when I said, this is for suicide prevention program, this is what we're doing it for, a lot of people were surprised and in a good way, and said, wow, we never thought of it this way. So it is innovative. And I actually just gave my Savannah TEDx talk
Oh,
last
okay, great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And my theme was using self-compassion as an upstream approach to suicide prevention, just because
Mm.
it's a, new idea worth sharing, as Ted likes to say.
Right, that's right. That's what TED is. Yeah, excellent. Well, this is super helpful. So those of you watching this, I highly recommend that you check out Mindful Self-Compassion training and see how it is that you can make it available in your community and connecting it to your suicide prevention efforts. Yeah. So Vera, thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you all.